Hey guys, welcome back to the channel where we help you manage your emotional issues. We don't tell you how to do it. We don't give you any instructions. We show you what emotions are, how they work, how you can process them on your own. That is what psychology is. It's clarification, not instruction. If somebody's trying to tell you to do something, if they use the word should, that's fine, but that's philosophy. That is not psychology. You want to clarify your issue so you can use that information however you want. And that's what we do in these videos. I got a question this week. Well, it's not a question. I got several replies to a meme that I made this past week. The hard pill to swallow meme. And what I said is on this, so this is a hard pill to swallow, difficult pill, a truth that not a lot of people want to hear, but it's true nonetheless. So too bad. And what I wrote in this meme is your life will be incomprehensible and needlessly frustrating until you have enough awareness to genuinely, that's a key word there, genuinely apologize to people who've harmed you. And I got some replies asking for clarification, so let's get to the clarification of this. Now, I get that this is counterintuitive. Now, yeah, if you do something wrong, it's good to apologize to somebody. But what if you've been harmed? What if you've been harmed by somebody? You apologize to them? Yes, this makes perfect sense when we look at the purpose of apologies, of forgiveness, and when we hold firm in our distinction between philosophy and psychology. Why is it whenever I start recording my video, my dog goes underneath the couch here? Is that a sign? Is that a sign of something? Am I talking too much? Do I need to shut up? Anyway. Okay, so there's 3 levels to this. So there's 3 levels to this. So you apologize to people who you've harmed, right? This makes sense. Then there's we forgive people who've harmed us. I think this is the next level. And then the next level beyond this is we apologize to people who've actually harmed us. And if we just understand the principles of forgiveness in the first 2 levels, apologize to people who we have harmed and then forgive people who've harmed us, then it naturally flows into the 3rd level. So why do you apologize to somebody who you've harmed? Why would you go about doing this? Well, I mean, on a certain sense, it's a recognition of reality. It's a recognition of, yes, I did this thing that is incorrect, and I want you to acknowledge that. Typically, it's a friend or somebody who, of course, you want to continue a relationship with. And you can't have a relationship with somebody if there's 2 different realities, so to speak. So you acknowledge reality. Yes, I did this thing that was incorrect, just to get us on the same footing, to let you know that I see where you're coming from, and to create that connection. But there's another step. I guess there's a stage 1A here, which is making an amend. And an amend is a little bit different, a little bit deeper than an apology, and that's where you say, yes, I did this thing that was wrong, and here's actually how my issue played into this thing that was wrong. And here's what I'm doing to work on that issue, right? You're not excusing it. In philosophy, there's no difference between a reason and an excuse. In psychology, there's a huge difference. You're not excusing it, you're giving a reason, you're acknowledging that that reason is your own issue, and you're going to take conscious steps to manage that issue. So let's say you punch your buddy because you're jealous of him or something, whatever it is. You get really jealous of your buddy and you punch him. So an amend would say, you would say, or excuse me, an apology, you would say, yeah, I'm sorry that I punched you. An amend is, I'm sorry I punched you, and here's why I punched you, because I have jealousy issues. I am jealous of you, and here's how it's probably not just with you these jealousy issues come up, but they come up in a bunch of other areas. I mean, you don't have to go into it. It depends on the relationship, the nature of the relationship. If you're if he's a closer buddy or a brother, then yeah, you can probably go into it a little bit more. So here's my jealousy issue. It came up in this instance of me punching you. And here's what I'm doing to work on the jealousy issue. Right? That would be an amend. So the next stage is, yeah, we forgive people who've harmed us. Now, a lot of people are resistant to this because they say, well, somebody's harmed you. Why do you forgive them? And I think we're missing the distinction here between psychology and philosophy, a distinction I talked about a couple weeks ago in my evil or what evil is, or excuse me, the modern problem of evil. So you can go back and listen to that. But yeah, they're true. Philosophically, they did something that harmed you. There's no reason why you need to forgive them in a philosophical context. But in a psychological context, what is the point? And again, I just want to stress here, and I may stress this again at another point in this video, we'll see, because I think it's important to stress this. You're not forgiving somebody. I don't think it's healthy to forgive somebody because you, quote, think you should forgive them, because you think it's the right thing to do, because some idiot came on YouTube and said it's good to forgive somebody who's harmed you. That's a terrible reason to forgive somebody, and it's not going to work. It's just going to make you more resentful of yourself, more resentful of the other person, and probably resentful of the person who told you to forgive them. Me. The idea here is you get yourself to the place where you see forgiveness as the next natural step in your relationship, even if you're not going to have a relationship. But it's almost like this thing that needs to be expressed. You can't not express this forgiveness. And if you're not there yet, it's fine. That's the point of therapy, is to get you to that place where you see that forgiveness is the right thing to do for you. And that's the point of forgiveness, right? It's to bring awareness to the issue. Bring awareness to how you see, yeah, somebody's hurt you. They have objectively hurt you. I don't want to minimize that in any way. But it helps you to see the other person's issue, right? Just like if you punch your buddy in the face because you're jealous of him, if somebody punched you in the face, you can acknowledge his jealousy. And maybe part of that is relating with him. Maybe you haven't punched anybody in the face over your jealousy, but you have felt jealousy yourself. Of course you have. So you acknowledge the jealousy. And you say, yeah, I understand what this issue is. I understand that you punching me had nothing to do with me, and perhaps you feeling jealous had nothing to do with you. Psychologically, it's just an issue, right? It's not your issue, it's an issue you have. Sounds like a minor distinction, but it's huge. It is vital to grasp that. So I recognize this issue that you have. So it ultimately has nothing to do with what happened or who's right or who's wrong. Again, in the court of law, we're not talking that. We're talking about psychologically. This is for you to increase awareness. And of course, you can talk about these things in therapy, but actually to go to the person who harmed you and speak with them about it and forgive them if that's what you feel is necessary to do, if that's what you feel like you just can't not do, then I would challenge you that that's going to be really important for your own awareness, not only of the situation, to take any emotional tension you have, to remove any emotional tension you have out of that, but to become more aware of yourself in your own life, which is ultimately the point of everything when it comes to psychology. So the third level, of the same principle applies. We're taking the same principles and just taking it to the next step. And when we apologize to people who've actually harmed us, not forgiving them, right? Apologizing. I didn't misspeak there. We apologize to people who have harmed us. So what is there to apologize for? Well, here's what happens. And this becomes quite evident when you start talking through your emotional issues, particularly in a certain way, is yes, there are people who have harmed you. But if the person is close enough to have harmed you, then chances are, and I would say pretty much 99% of the time, there's a few cases where this isn't true. But most of the time, if the person has harmed you, you are close enough to them for you to in turn harm them. So this is very true of relationships with your parents. Right? This happens all the time. Your parents harm you in some way. Now, what does the harm mean? That harm goes in you. Now that harm is your harm. And what do you do with that harm typically? You don't resolve it right away. You internalize it. You don't talk about it. You keep it a secret. You hide it. You cover it. You repress it. So what happens is, in turn, you end up harming others with how you were harmed initially. You end up harming the person who harmed you with the harm that they gave you. Now, of course, they started it, so to speak. Especially, we'll just keep this in the context of your mom or dad. We'll just say your dad to make it more specific and more palpable and to make the example clear. Yes, your dad has harmed you. but you have in turn not managed that harm and probably have harmed him. So that is ultimately what you're apologizing for. You're not minimizing what your dad did to harm you, and he may have done some egregious things. There's some caveats here I want to get to. I think it's important. But yeah, if you're close enough to be harmed by somebody, then you're close enough probably to harm them. And look, I get it. Like, we can look at the pie chart of this relationship, the pie chart of harm in this relationship between you and your dad, and he's objectively, let's just say objectively, if we could make this objective, he's responsible for 99% of it, you're responsible for 1% of it, and you go, well, he's not apologizing for his 99% of it. It's like, yeah, I don't care about him. I care about you and how you communicate and how vigilant and honest we can be about you and your issue. How clear. And part of that clarity is taking that 1% and saying, yeah, I did that. Is it your fault? Well, no, it's definitely not your fault, especially if you were a minor when this happened. And it probably were a minor if we're talking about the example of your dad. But it is your responsibility now if you're not a minor. And nobody's ever going to fix that for you. That this is such an important issue to get, and we get it on so many other levels. Right? It's like one of those IQ tests. If a situation is relevant to us, it's easier for us to understand, but if we just take variables, I don't know, there's some name to that test. If you get hit by a car, if some guy on a bike hits you and then bikes off, that is not your fault. Now, in some sense, we could get really vigilant about our responsibility and say, well, I didn't look both ways. I wasn't really paying attention. I was worried about whether this girl's going to text me back, so we can take responsibility for that issue. But, just philosophically, that's not your fault that guy hit you on the bike. But you have a broken leg now, and he pedaled off. You're not going to find him. So whose responsibility is the broken leg? It's no fun, but it's your responsibility. And we get that on some level. But when it comes to emotional issues, no, we still want to say, no, it's our dad's responsibility. He is metaphysically incapable of managing that issue. It's no fun, but that's just the way it is. Great quotation from Charlie X, Star Trek episode. So yeah, look at how you have harmed in response to people who've harmed you. Now, there are some cases, when this isn't this isn't true. If some pedophile down the street diddled you when you were growing up, that's obviously, you don't go apologize to him. But in most cases, that's a rare scenario. In most cases, then you do. But that's just if you're a minor, when somebody hurt you, when the initial fault happened against you. That, of course, was not your fault. But if you're not a minor, if you're at least, and I would really say if you're at least 16, although I think you technically, legally should be a minor still. Psychologically, you're not in some cases. And so it's still good to take responsibility. And then what you do there is, so if you're an adult and somebody's harmed you, you, by dint of what the situation is, by dint of who you are, use that term metaphysically, as an individual, as a being who is capable of creating an identity unto yourself, then you have let that other person harm you. So now you don't just apologize for you not managing the harm and going out and hurting other people with that harm that was initially given to you, that you initially accepted if you're an adult, but now you're apologizing for the fact that you let somebody else harm you. So if somebody took advantage of you, yeah, they shouldn't have tried to take advantage of you. They're wrong. Very good. You get an A on that test. That ultimately doesn't matter, but you let them take advantage of you, right? You let them use you. You let them use you, which, yeah, it hurt you, of course. Again, we're not minimizing that, but it hurt them too, because you served as this canvas on which they could, project out all their insecurities that, in their case, leads to managing or manipulating other people, some kind of codependent thing. You let them do that. That hurt you, but it definitely hurt them. Okay, you hurt them. You apologize to them for that. You make amends. If we're going to be vigilant about your emotional issues and creating awareness, then that's vitally, important to do. The only time you don't do something like this is, of course, if there's just egregious sexual, physical, emotional abuse. Talk to your therapist about what you think would be good to do in certain situations. And again, the other caveat is, of course, is you don't make yourself do this. I talk about this, what did I say in the original tweet or in the meme? Yeah, your life will be incomprehensible. Well, maybe not incomprehensible. That's kind of to some degree, incomprehensible and needlessly frustrating. That's the key. Life is kind of frustrating. Some things frustrate us, but needlessly frustrating until you can see how your issue manifests in the world around you, right? That's something that I say a lot here, right? Is we don't have external problems. The external problem is mostly an illusion. We have emotional problems that manifest in external problems. So we don't have relationship problems. We have emotional issues that manifest in our relationships. We don't have business, career, job, communication, relationship problems. We have emotional problems that manifest in this way. And I don't just mean this as like a cute thing to say. And I don't mean this some of the time. This is how it works. And this is all the time to the nth degree. As long as you're an adult. I'm just reading about, I'm always reading about ancient Egyptian history. And of course, Akhenaten is a fascinating character. The first guy to create a monotheistic religion, not the first monotheistic religion, Zoroastrianism is the first one of those. But we don't know really the origins of that. Interesting. I'll save my conspiracies about that for another video. But effectively, the first guy in recorded history that created a monotheistic religion, Akhenaten, Egyptian pharaoh. And Egyptian mythology, Egyptian religion, it's just surf it with a bunch of different gods. There's a lot of overlap to different gods, not a lot of communication between the gods. And Akhenaten comes on and says, no, there's one God, Aten, likened to the sun. And that's what we're worshiping. There's this huge, I think the metaphor is profound, actually. I think it's profound. Maybe you don't. There's this huge bureaucracy of priests that have way too much power, that are getting a free ride because of all these different gods that we have in our Egyptian civilization. We're going to get rid of those, or at least subordinate them to the one God, Aten, likened to the sun. The first monotheistic religion in recorded history, and I think one famous Egyptologist said the first individual in history to do this. And what does this mean? It means that, what are the gods psychologically, right? The gods are projections of our issues. We think we live in a monotheistic culture, at least, like based on some Judeo-Christian value. That's not true. We pay those Judeo-Christian principles lip service first. And I'm not a Jew, I'm not a Christian. It's not about that, right? It's just about being honest about where we are culturally. We think we're monotheistic if we do believe in a God. But we're not. We're polytheistic. Because even if you're a Christian or a Jew, whatever, Muslim, it doesn't matter, these monotheistic religions. And you go, God, psychologically, God is in charge. But my dad hurt me. Yeah, God is in charge. But this one person did something to me, and there's nothing I can do about that. I'm a victim of that circumstance. And even if we get that, it's not my father who's in charge of my life, but my relationship with my father that's in charge of my life. I get that 99%, but this one thing that my dad did, I'm kind of holding on to that. You're not a monotheist. You're a polytheist. You're not, psychologically what we're talking about is you're not an individual. You are, putting the responsibility of developing your boundary on something outside of you, right? And it's causing a lot more confusion than is necessary. It's to go back to my meme, it's needlessly frustrating. It's more incomprehensible than it needs to be, and it's needlessly frustrating. And that's what we can help you with here, is just do the Akhenaten thing, not in the realm of gods, but being honest about what gods ultimately represent. Again, if you think that gods are literally real, it doesn't matter psychologically. Philosophically, great. We can have that debate all day, but it's ultimately not going to matter, right? But psychologically, let's do the Akhenaten thing. And that's what we can help you with here. How your issues come down, how issues in your life, your existential issues, it comes down to your emotional issues. That we can describe in a bunch of different ways, right? We can call it anger, we can call it anxiety, identity. Ultimately, we're talking about is self-awareness. The quaternity, right? It's not a trinity, but the quaternity. We're just saying the same thing in a different way. So let's get really clear about what your anger, what your anxiety, what your identity and self-awareness are. Let's talk about it in the right way. Let's process it. Let's bring these gods, you can call them demons, let's bring them to the surface, shine light on them, bring clarity to them so you can take this information and use it in whatever way you want. There's a bunch of information on, look at other places on this YouTube channel, other videos. I got a website, a bunch of great stuff there. And if you want to learn more about what I do and how we can help you get to this place where you feel that the next stage of your development is to apologize, not only forgive people who harmed you, but apologize to them, then we do free consultations. animusempire.com/schedule. Thank you guys, and remember that, the saying goes, there's two sides of every coin. One side of that is, people who have harmed you, but the other side is how you have used that harm to, in turn, harm them.